All right, welcome back from our recess. Now we welcome Nan Murphy. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending an entire day in our district. It's been quite a long affair for you, so we appreciate you being here. So we'll start out by we'll ask you some questions, and then we'll leave some time at the end for you to offer some closing remarks if you'd like.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Right. Manny, you want to start us up?
Should we go through the introductions?
Oh, yeah, of course, we should do that. Manny, would you like to introduce yourself to me?
I will. I'm Manny Mullis, and it was nice speaking with you briefly earlier. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Jay Burns. Welcome to the district.
Hi, Nan Murphy. Jen Bryson. Nice to see you.
I'm Steve Bjork. Welcome.
Julie Broussard.
Peggy Kane, good to see you again.
Tom Talbot.
All right, we've just used the time for Manny's first question. Manny, go ahead.
Thank you. So then you've had an opportunity to visit our community, and community that you know very well. And you talked to the members and the teachers and administrators. So can you tell us how our school district compares to the current school district that you're working in, and how is it different?
Okay. I think there are a lot of similarities, more similarities than differences. I think there, throughout my day, there are structures for support within every building that I've visited. It's clear to me that the building, there are expectations around student behavior and around classroom structures. So one of the things a district level person will look for when they visit classrooms is the level of where the teachers are and what they're engaged in and what kids are doing. And every classroom that I visited seemed to be on target with what I would expect and what I see in the district that I'm currently working in. I think some of the differences would lie in pockets. I can't say that it's across every classroom or every building that I saw. Looking at the various levels of teachers differentiating materials for kids. So that, again, that's another thing that we're focused on in the district that I'm currently in. I saw different parts of that embedded in some of the work here. Certainly an area that maybe to talk further about. But it's overall very warm. Every school is welcoming. Every leader is very on target with what their goals are for their schools. And it was a pleasure meeting each and every student and teacher throughout the district today. So I think there's the similarities. I think similarities around instructional practices are vary from building to building and district to district, and it's hard to compare one to another. There are strengths and weaknesses across the board, and you just identify them and remediate them when you see them. So I guess that's kind of a harder question to answer in terms of comparing the two districts. But I saw really great teaching and learning here today. And I see that in my district as well. So,
Thank you.
I was intrigued to read that your current district is participating with the Massachusetts Consortium of Innovative Education Assessment Group.
yep.
Can you please share your thoughts and experience on how this has driven the work around curriculum development and assessments, and how staff has responded to this initiative?
Okay. So the reason Lowell Public Schools got embedded in that work is our superintendent and a lot of us at the district level are looking for improvement in the way the state identifies accountability for every building and every school district. And urban schools are hurt in a lot of those formulas just based on their demographics. So the work at the MCIEA is based in two different areas. One, reformulating what the accountability formula should look like across the state and how we identify schools that are high performing, mid performing, and low performing. But the other component, which is more of what I'm doing in Lowell with teachers and principals, is looking at project-based assessments and looking at ways to get a better picture of kids and what they know and are able to do beyond the paper pencil test or the standardized test. So there are rubrics we're following. We've gone to a couple of trainings as pilot schools. We have one school in particular that has, the building leader has really gravitated to this, the teachers have gravitated to it, and they're doing internal trainings now, so they're hoping to bring this more project-based assessment vertically. So they're looking to bring it throughout their entire school. The state of New Hampshire uses this as their as part of their accountability formula. So they are doing away with standardized testing as we know it in terms of the MCAS 2.0. And so this is very innovative. It's also very difficult to define right now, as you might imagine. How do you capture everything a student can know and learn how to do in the course of a year through one assessment? So it's layered. There are different layers throughout the assessment process, but so far teachers couldn't be happier, and it's a lot of work. We are grant funded at this point, so we are able to pay our teachers to attend additional collaborative times to work on these common assessments throughout the district. But it is something that teachers are truly invested in and excited to maybe expand a little bit further.
Thank you for sharing.
So.
How do you use data to make decisions about programs being considered as additions, modifications, or deletions from the budget?
Okay. I'm not sure where the data would come into those particular considerations. Outside of, I guess, student performance data, so you would be looking at how well is the curriculum aligned to the assessments and to the standards, and so how effective are the kids of meeting the curricular needs and therefore mastering standards. So I think if you saw a trend of low data, you would question the level of content through the curriculum. But I think you would also look at triangulate it a little bit and question it a little bit before you went and made a decision about curriculum. I'd look at, the teaching practices and trends across the district. Are we finding fifth graders across the district with this problem? Is it more localized? So I think you would use data in that way. If you were seeing kids not performing, you would question whether it's aligned to the standards that you're assessing.
So I'm going to present you with a difficult scenario.
Okay.
And I'm just looking to see how you kind of process it and how you react.
Okay.
So the scenario is you are visiting one of our elementary schools when a report of a suspicious person on the grounds leads to a lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as lockdown protocol has been implemented, a parent buzzes at the front door for entrance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle that situation?
If you are in the means of communication in terms of somebody able to communicate through a buzzer, no entrance at this time.
Okay.
There would be no entrance. I mean, it's a scenario of utmost importance, and protocols need to be followed to the T.
Okay.
So I think it would be pretty crystal clear to me in that case. And communicating to the parent at the door would be secondary. It wouldn't, if we weren't able to communicate, then the parent would just wait until we lifted the lockdown.
Okay. Thank you.
Sort of a follow-up to the scenario that Mr. Bjork presented, and I'm sure your district has dealt with it, and Wilmington certainly has dealt with it, the delicate situations, right? So a lot of people would say, and we've certainly learned, that our superintendent needs to be a master of public relations and communication. So in these delicate situations, how do you ensure, or how do you propose communicating enough information to the parents, to the staff, to the community at large, so people feel comfortable that they have what they need? At the same time, you've got to ensure that confidentiality. Maybe you're in the middle of an active investigation. So there's confidentiality issues, there's privacy issues, and oh, by the way, there's the law you have to
Right.
follow.
Right. So I think there have been a couple of occasions where I have had to kind of process those situations and scenarios. And I feel like what I have learned is that the community you're communicating to, whether it's the school population, the district population, they just want information to clarify what they're hearing or what they may be hearing from students. I think when there's the lack of communication is when the problems really start to happen. So I think getting out those modes of communication as swiftly as possible and as vaguely as possible, and naming that I'm apologizing at this time for the lack of detail, but we are, currently moving forward with an investigation in this, and as details emerge, they will be shared with the community, so you will have the most recent updated information. So they're feeling communicated with, they understand they're not getting everything right now and in the know, but that it will come as soon as it's appropriate for it to come.
Thank you.
I'd like to just talk about consistency for a moment.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, all this testing that we've faced, and I know in my school this used to be the case, on Monday, we were supposed to be on this page. On Tuesday, we were supposed to have covered this many items, et cetera. And it made us feel that we had no individuality left as teachers. And how do you deal with that or get around that thinking? Because there is still a way to have individuality, but having that consistency, is it the, I'm not sure if you deal with that or not, and if it has to do with the actual school that you're in, or the year that you are, or whatever.
So I think consistency is key, but I also think the guiding factor is what's best for kids. So there will be times when you are exposing students to content that for some reason they need more exposure to. So maybe the class you had prior didn't have that need, and this class has that need. So you have to, as a teacher, give yourself and as an administrative staff, you have to allow people to not exactly be in alignment. If you have sixth grade teachers, they hopefully are not all on the same page. Because if you're meeting the needs of the kids sitting in front of you, you can't be. So I think there are times when I have questioned a staff member about their pacing and where the concern was starting to lie around being so behind, then you need to go a little bit deeper as to what's happening, but you have to allow and understand that every classroom has a different set of needs, different levels of support, and honor that. And then also as a team of teachers, I would work with my staff around looking at the curriculum and say, okay, by June, we were hoping to be further along. It's May, and here's the end point in June. What can we take out, and what do we absolutely need to cover before the end of the year so these kids are ready for their next year? So you're really looking at curriculum consistently and trying to determine so a lot of times you'll hear teachers say, well, we covered that through this unit, so I feel like that's a standard we could or that's a lesson that we could maybe drop and gain a day through that. So by constantly having those conversations with teachers and having providing colleagues the opportunity to talk with each other, and they can say, I'm a little bit ahead, I did lesson 8.5, and it's really repetitive of 8.1. You guys can skip it. And if you're having those consistent educational conversations around curriculum, you can support each other in that way too.
Thank you.
But you don't want to get too far off track, and there's a pacing, and any curriculum that you adopt, the pacing is research-based and proven to be successful. So if you're really behind, you got to kind of think about why is that happening.
I also think part of it is that when you're doing, if you're doing it that way, sometimes, for instance, on tests, you may not have finished the next day, you can't go on, you have to go on, so you can't go back and take care of that.
Yeah.
And I hate when I hear that we can't do anything else, that's, you learned that unit, that's what you got, that's it, you can't go
Right.
on. But I think it's very legitimate in the school system.
Yeah. And I think also to your point about the assessment piece, demanding it happen at a particular time. There have been times in my experience when I've met with teachers and the assessment shows that kids are not ready for the next unit. And so they'll come to me and say, I don't know what to do. I have, a large portion of my students not ready to move on. And I know the expectation is in November, we start the nonfiction unit or whatever the conversation is. And you have to allow them to make those educational shifts in thinking and do what's right for their kids. So to kind of circle back and use that's what the data is for, to understand where kids are. And if your data is telling you they're not where they need to be, then you need to go back and revisit some of that content and get them there.
Good. Thank you.
So how do you see your role as superintendent working with community groups like businesses, CPACs, and PTOs?
So I see it as essential. I see it as, being part of those groups is where you are gathering your information about what you need to make decisions about as a district leader. If you are involved in parent conversations and activities, if you are supporting athletic events and sitting on the bleachers, that's where you're gathering all of your information around what your community is seeking from their school system. As far as town officials, I was lucky enough today, you provided me a luncheon with some local officials, and the understanding that we're all serving the same constituency, that the police department, the fire department, the DPW, we're all serving the same I had it right the first time. Yes, so they're all our people, and that they all need different services and they need different things from different people, but they're all our responsibilities, and so we need to be fiscally responsible to each other and be able to understand that certain departments have certain needs, and you need to understand them and support them, and sometimes you're not going to get what you need for your department because somebody else's department is in a need in another critical area. So I think it's important that you have that working relationship and understanding with your district colleagues and your town officials and your parent population.
So I want to go back to a topic that Mrs. Broussard brought up regarding communication. And sometimes the lack of it leads to some negative communication via social media. And we've had some challenges with the social media piece. So what do you think the role of social media is in education? And what do you see as the positives of social media? And how do you respond to the negative issues that come up as they relate to social media?
So I think that's a topic that's not going to go away. I think it's going to be something that districts need to plan for and prepare for, because as technology evolves, the different, even just one of the most difficult cases I dealt with as a building leader was around an app that I had never heard of that students could access, and I didn't even know it existed, and to the damage that it could essentially do while kids are sitting next to each other in school using this app. So I think it's important for all of the adults throughout the district to have an understanding of social media. The positives are broad and great. You're communicating with families. They're able to see what's going on in their schools. They're able to connect visually with activities that maybe they weren't able to attend. They're able to see photographs and hear about debates that were happening in schools and see and connect with their school in that way. It's great for PTOs. My parent group had a PTO page, Facebook page, and we would, blast out if we needed parent volunteers or if we needed candy or and it was a great mode of communication to get the word out. It was a paper saver. I did half as many newsletters and notices that I needed to do because we were posting on Facebook and tweeting about it. And as we got more and more parents engaged in that process, the less and less we had to do in other more laborious ways of communicating. But I think the downsides are severe and problematic. I talked a little bit about this with the teachers today. The adult behavior on Facebook can be worse at times than the student behavior. I think there needs to be a very clear message from the district leader what will not be tolerated and what will, that this is a community of support and that we have an avenue. We have to make sure parents understand what the avenues are to voice concerns. They have to feel they have access to people that will listen and hear them out. If those structures aren't in place, they are more apt to go online and voice concerns and criticisms. But you almost have to market that. If you're feeling that you have some concerns about your child's education or something that's happening, please visit me at blank, 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 and during these times. But I think the message also needs to be sent and calibrated across the district that adults are modeling for our students and that we have high expectation of student behavior online and we have high expectations of adult behavior online. And that, in the District of Wilmington, we use our online messaging to support each other and to grow our community. And if you have an issue, please, seek out these alternative routes so we can come to a solution for you.
Thanks.
There's been a discussion taking root in the world of education. Lecturer and educator Jack Marr lectured that in order for our children not to have to compete for jobs of the future with machines, we need to abandon our current practices of knowledge-based skills and instead teach them soft skills such as values, believing in independent thinking, caring for others, and building individual and unique skills within our kids. Dr. Bill Daggett, founder and chair of the International Center for Learning and Education, speaks of the fourth industrial revolution that the world is currently entering and how education needs to move towards more rigorous and relevant skills and knowledge for all students in order for them to be able to access the jobs of tomorrow. What is your view of this discussion taking place? And if chosen as superintendent, how will you or could you how could it drive the education within our district?
Okay. Well, I don't see either of them in isolation. I feel like students have to have a moral compass. We have to teach our students and our children that you have a moral obligation to your fellow people. And whether you choose to do that as an engineer or whether you choose to embed that in your work as a social worker, you need skills, both industrial skills. If that is your interest-driven field that you would like to pursue, then we need to prepare you to pursue that. We need to prepare you to also pursue that in the world of many social inequities, and we want to raise you to be a student that will advocate for people who are suffering and to have a wider lens beyond yourself and even beyond your own country. But I don't see the two in isolation. I think we really need to look at developing kids into future employees in areas that they love, because the happier you are in your job, the more successful you are in life overall. So if they are looking towards the math and sciences, then they should have the opportunity to grow those skills. And if they're looking in another field, they should have the opportunity to grow those skills also. So I think it's a blending of both to be a successful adult and to be a productive citizen at this point. So I guess I would be on the fence in that debate.
Thank you.
You mentioned social inequities. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with culturally proficient instruction, its role in schools, and your work with teachers and district leaders?
Okay. So culturally proficient, we talk about the language of poverty. To me, it's just good teaching. You meet the kids at where they are, and you teach to their levels. So if you have a student that is unable to access language, then you are going to be in the unique situation of developing curriculum, to seeking out support and other educators. We do not put kindergarten or first graders that are non-English speaking when they come to Lowell. We put them in the mainstream classroom. So all of our kindergarten and first grade teachers have non-speaking immigrant students. They don't have special programming for them. We firmly believe that the students coming in learn from models, positive language models, and we certainly measure their progress and make sure that they're making the gains we assume they will be making. But they do. The difficulty lies when you have kids that have already established a language other than English, then you are at a different level, and there are programs, I guess you can say. At the McCullough School, I really believed that our students needed to be have the tailored education towards their second language, but then immersed into mainstream settings as well, so that they could learn from their peers and pick up language through conversation and through innuendo that you can't get when you're in a smaller setting with just one adult and maybe a few students. So I think it's a complex question, and I know there's a lot of debate around the best way to immerse students culturally into different educational settings. I think it's a balance. And again, I think it gets back to what's best for the kids. Some kids are ready for it, and some kids need more sheltered English. And you provide that shelter until they're ready to have that guided release into the mainstream classroom, and then you monitor them. And if you need to, you pull them back in for some more sheltered instruction, and then you monitor them. When they're ready, you release them back into the classroom.
Thank you.
What would you say is the most important thing or things that a school committee can do to support a superintendent? And conversely, what is the most important thing or things that a superintendent can do to support their school committee?
Okay. I think at the root is communication and having a relationship and a shared vision. So I think if you can create a vision for the town that you're both in alignment with, I think that's the first step, because then supporting the work of both sides is a fluid relationship, because what you're looking to get is what we're looking to get, and there's a fluidity to it. So I think trying to nurture and build and create that type of vision, and then communicate about it. And I think there needs to be open and honest dialogue about things that are things that I may, as a superintendent, be struggling with. I don't think you want your school committee in the dark about things that you're wrestling with. I think if it gets to a level that you're questioning certain things, you want to get the support of your school committee and get their guidance on certain. So I would be, to answer your question, I guess from my side, I would be looking for that team approach and that level of acceptance, and that you would see questions as a opportunity to grow your leader as opposed to a deficit, And, I think I would be, you're, again, serving a constituency that is articulating what they're needing in a unique way to an elected official. And so I think you sharing that with me is important, and I think there's going to be times when you see things as really important directions that the district needs to take, and I think we kind of just need to all be on the same page so we can move in that direction together. I think ultimately, the superintendent's job is to operationalize the school committee's vision for the district. So, it's great when you have that in alignment, when you're both on the same page with that.
Thank you.
Okay, one of the things that sets you apart from the other candidates we've been considering is that you have worked in our district already. So I think it's safe to assume that you might possibly still have some established relationships, but maybe an opportunity to develop new. So if you could share with us, how would you go about reestablishing your credibility, if you will? And how would you tackle the first 90 days on the job?
Okay. So I think to build relationships, you have to be out and about. So I think my personal and professional goal for myself is one school a day. I'm in one school every day. Whether I'm dropping off a curriculum and check some texts, or doing something, I'm in a school and I'm connecting with kids and staff at some level in a building every day. So I feel like there are some district leaders that see that level of intimacy in terms of being in schools not really in the role. And that would be, that's not how I see it, and that's not what I enjoy being out in the buildings, and I think that's where you get your most authentic feedback from the stakeholders. The teachers will tell you when you're in their room that it's 95 degrees and can you do something about it? Or, and you are in there and it's 95 degrees and it's, the kids are lethargic and you understand. So it's different than getting that email at the district level. It's 95 degrees in my classroom and I'm dying. When you're in there, you're like, wow, this is really tough to teach in, and so there's, so I think part of being a relationship builder is being present and being out there and connected to the people and to their work. So the more they see me as a support person, the more authentic our relationships can be. I also try this is new to me in my role at the district level. I look less at, I try not to look at all at individual teaching. I look at trends across this building. So I look at the level of student engagement or the level of student discourse in a classroom, and I dissociate myself from the teacher because that is not my role to evaluate staff. And I want teachers to feel that comfort when I'm in their rooms, that it's not, I'm looking at kids, I'm not looking at teaching. So I think being clear about why I'm in buildings and what my work is in a building. I think a common term for leaders is my door is always open, but that implies somebody has to be at your door, and that I would rather be at their door and have that casual conversation and learn from them what's happening. And that's where the high stakes relationship building really happens, is when you're out and about. So I look forward to building those kinds of relationships. I feel fortunate that I've been able to have that experience and feel relatively successful in that model. So it works well, and I would hope to continue it.
Thank you.
But it's also something that I think the superintendent would need to communicate about. Like, it might be new to people to have somebody at the district level in buildings, and that you would have to, you really need to give people the idea of why you're there and what you're looking for when you're there, because I think that's that's part of the buy-in and the trust. You need to build that trust with people. So I guess to add on to your question about the first 90 days, I think it would be all about kind of getting people to know me and to be able to ask me questions and give me some feedback and share ideas with me. 90 days goes very fast. It's only 3 months. So, I think it's probably not even enough time to do that well, but it would be a start.
Thank you.
I think my question plays right off of Julie's here. What would you see for yourself as in the area of personal advocacy when you first come to the school system, and why would you choose that particular item?
So can you
Or
help me
issue.
understand that question, like personal, how?
We all come, I think sometimes when we start something new, we come to it with excitement and,
Yeah.
like, I really want to find out how each teacher does A, B, or C,
Yeah.
or how they
Yeah.
react to the kids
Okay,
with each other. So I should probably put it that way.
okay,
What might be your most interesting thing for you when you first start?
okay. So if I understand the question correctly, so tell me if I'm off track with this. I think one of the things that I feel excited about is throughout my day and through different modes of information, I feel like Wilmington has been fractured in a way, that there's pockets of people and structures and routines that don't feel aligned. So I think as a new leader, it would be, it's an exciting opportunity to come into a role where where your group is looking to form a team and eager to have somebody lead. Throughout the day, everybody's kind of saying, we've been waiting. We're just kind of waiting. We're wondering what's going to happen. We're waiting to roll this out because we don't know who the superintendent is. So I think that would be a personal challenge, but also of high reward if you're able to bring a district together and be able to kind of establish a shared vision for the future. Build that network and that team. Did I answer that?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Big topic amongst a lot of school districts is dealing with changing of school times until later. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I'm from Burlington, so I am living it this year. The times have changed. We've followed it religiously through the school committee. I've watched the debates. I've been able to hear on the soccer field from parents, one side versus the other. But I really do, as a parent of high school kids, college student now, but a high school student now also, it is developmentally research defined that it's better for a late start for the high school, for adolescents. There is research that supports that. It's also research-based that younger students do better in the morning, that they're up, they're eager, they're ready to go. Now, if it could only be about that, we would have no questions, but it affects the working community, it affects our daycare community, it affects our athletic community. So there are a lot of contingencies that need to be figured out, and we need to have dialogue as a district, and I feel like Burlington did that well in that they offered multiple forums and multiple plans, and they proposed a plan, and then after a parent forum, you got another plan. So they really did change their plans based on parent feedback. So I think that was a great procedure, but I also feel like there were two sides, and either side wasn't going to be happy. And you could see why. There were legitimate concerns. So I know from a parent in the community, I don't know that as an educator. I'm talking as a parent who watched that roll out. I would definitely want to look into the research. I'd want to have conversations with how the people that impacted. And it most definitely couldn't be a decision that would be made without variety of opportunities throughout a course of a long time for community input.
Thank you.
So how would you convey to the members of the school system and the members of the community that you want them to share ideas with you and concerns with you? And how do you convince them that you'll seriously consider what they have to say? And if they express views that you may oppose, how would you deal with that?
So I'm gonna start by saying that if you really can't do anything about it, you have to be fair and tell them that. I think the most frustrating thing for stakeholders, whether it's a parent or a teacher, is when they feel like they've communicated something to you clearly and that it's been received and then nothing happens and they don't know why nothing happens. So I think having that lens and being able to be fair in those conversations, I think you have to, again, be, if you're not out and about and these concerns and these issues come up organically with staff, what ends up happening is you get bombarded with negativity. You're only going to get the concerns and the problems. And I always would say to my staff, yeah, I get where you're coming from. Come back to me with a solution and let's chat. So you kind of are able to engage them in the solution as opposed to just being able to communicate something that's not going well. Because one person can't solve everything. So the more people that are engaged in the solution and most effectively, the people that are going to benefit from the solution, if you can include them in how things are resolved, that's great. And then you had a third component, which was?
Well, you kind of answered it. How do you deal with when they express views that you may oppose?
Okay. I'm pretty transparent. I find that, in an appropriate scaled way, but depending on the question and depending on the request, there's a level of transparency that you have to hold yourself accountable to. And I think the mistake that some leaders make is they want people to be happy, so they avoid those conversations. So I think, if you explain your reasoning, they may not like it, but at least they have a reference to why the decision was made that didn't go their way. So I think communication plays an important role in that.
Okay. Thank you.
So what has been your greatest professional disappointment, and what did you learn from it?
Wow. I'm thinking of one, but I being in a public setting, I don't feel comfortable sharing that because it involves other people. So I'm trying to think of my next to most disappointing. I think when you are in a position of a sole position of leader, in a principal position, there are times you have to make decisions, to get back to Manny's point, that are very unpopular. And I think there were times when I could have preserved the culture of my school. This is another one that I feel like I can't really say. It just involves staff, so it's hard. But I think sometimes there are missteps. A principal can be too swift in making a decision, and then you have fallout among your staff, and then they feel unincluded and somehow they lose trust in you. And so there have been times when I have had to make a difficult decision. And so I would say the disappointment lies in the way that maybe I communicated it and how it happened. But the most important thing is that I learned from that and am not apt to make those mistakes again. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Can you describe the professional development opportunities you've provided in your district related to supporting special education students?
Okay, yeah. So, so our district is really elevating the conversation around tiered instruction. So the response to intervention, which is a protocol and a structure set up to scaffold for kids, and you have tier 1, which are your mainstream students and your exceeds and proficient, and your tier 2 students that need a little bit more support in specific areas. And then you have the students that fall in tier 3, which they need more targeted interventions. So I think in the professional development towards special education, it really has been more about setting a foundation for our mainstream teachers around how do we scoop these kids up and modify for them before we refer them for testing and they become students in the special education setting. So we're talking with teachers during professional development around leveling groups. So I know you have your readers workshop happening. A lot of that kind of differentiated support can happen in those small group reading. So where students maybe used to go for a pull-out special ed phonics lesson, you can actually embed some of that now into the structures that you have in the classroom. And then, so those are kind of preliminary PDs that we're doing to support students before they're referred for special education. But then once we have students that are identified as special education, I think we do a poor job of providing professional development for our teachers and our special education teachers. So I think like all things education, special education is rapidly changing and evolving, and you need to stay consistent with different modes of access to curriculum for students, to assess a student's ability, and if you're sending a lot of students out of district, why is that? Can we provide some professional development and some space for that program to maybe be built within our district? So that's something that we actually are looking at in Lowell. We're bringing back a program on a day school as students with autism are coming back into Lowell, and those teachers are being provided specialized professional development to work with that population of students. But I think if you came to Lowell, I think you would hear from special educators saying that they don't have enough professional development. So I think that would definitely be an area of focus after we kind of roll out this response to intervention, because that's including mainstream and special education teachers, and then elevate it to target just the special education teachers. But I think a simple fix to that doesn't even have to be that specific. It can even be providing opportunities for teachers that are teaching students with special needs to collaborate with one another, because they're struggling with many diverse needs in one classroom. And scheduling is hard, testing is hard, managing the IEPs are hard. So setting up a structure within a school system where these teachers that have very specified jobs can collaborate and learn from each other and share lessons and share successes and challenges and help problem solve. That's probably some of the best PD you can provide folks doing that kind of work.
Thank you.
How much value do you place on the performing arts within public school systems, and how would you reflect that value in your budgeting?
I think it has tremendous value. I think the arts, we want every student to succeed, and that's the motto you'll find in every district in one way or another. It's embedded into their vision, mission statements. But not all students have the same interests and same ability levels in the same content areas. And I think music and arts and creativity brings out some really hidden strengths of excellence. And without them embedded in the programming in a district, I think you're losing a lot of opportunity for kids to find themselves and to feel good about themselves and to be great at something. So I think it's one of those kind of situations where when you're looking at a budget, it's somehow, I think the allied arts have always kind of taken a hit. And I think if you talk to allied art teachers, they'll tell you that they take a hit because they don't get the professional development that other teachers get. So I feel like I place a value on it. I think it's important. My favorite part of a football game is the music, the band. I mean, it's just, there's something really regal about it, and I think it elevates students, and it gives people who are not athletic an opportunity to be part of a team, be part of an organization. On my tour today, I was able to stop in and say hi to the cast of Alice in Wonderland, and they were all together in a shared activity, having a great time, just like your athletes were today. So I think there's tremendous value in that.
Thank you.
All righty. What kind of professional learning goals do you have for yourself? And what's next for you besides the superintendent position?
Well, the professional learning goal, the professional goals that I'm working with right now on my professional plan is to be embedded in schools. So that has to be a priority, or it can easily become secondary, that you have other things that you need to do. Being a district leader, you are pulled in multiple directions. So that is a goal of mine that I'm currently working on. And there are days that I am not able to be in a building, but then I will make it up on another day by hitting a couple of other buildings. And then embedded in that work is a debrief with my assistant superintendent of curriculum. So we will debrief with each other and share out on what our learning was during those visits, and try to connect something positive for the school as a result of our visit, whether it's finding, just this week I was visiting a school, and the teacher said, I said, why are you not projecting? She was drawing something on a whiteboard. I said, why are you not projecting? And she said, I haven't had a bulb for my projector. They aren't making those bulbs anymore. And I said, really? So I went back to the district and I went into IT and I was like, guys, we need a bulb. This is the model number. And he's like, yeah, we're not buying those anymore. I said, well, we need to, because there's a teacher out there that needs it for her work with students, and we have to find her this bulb. If not, we need to find her a new projector and update the whole system, which they're comparable in price at this point, the bulbs and the. We put out an email, and it went out to all the principals and said, do you have this bulb in any of your old storage areas? And we found a bulb. So had I not been in that school with that teacher on that day, that wouldn't have happened. So that's the goal, right, to make that connection. So I think my goal for myself here would be relationship building and being out in the community and building relationships. Because in order for me to move forward with any sort of initiative, I need people to have the faith in who I am and what my schema is around education and know me a little bit to be able to support any initiative or any vision that I would develop. So I think that would be the first and foremost for me here as a goal.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Julie keeps leading me right into my questions. Thank you, Julie. I was going to ask you if you would share with us any interests that we wouldn't know about, but you might want to share, about your personal time at home. Like you're a reader, like something specific, a gardener, or
Wow.
do you have, I don't know if you have time,
You
you
ask
sound
great
so busy.
questions. Sure. Well, it's another thing I probably shouldn't say on TV, but I will. I turned 50, so I have a list of 50 things to accomplish in my 50th year. So I am working through my list, and on that list, I started playing the ukulele. So that's something that I'm doing. I took my mom, who's 85 years old. I wanted a mother-daughter weekend with her, so we recently took a trip together. So I'm working my way through my list, my 50 for 50. I started knitting, and then I stopped. But I started. And I'm also, I ran my first 10K.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so that was on my list. So now, I also on my list was a guilt-free trip to McDonald's. So I did that. So just kind of having some fun, trying some new experiences and broadening some horizons.
Thank you, that's terrific, thank you.
I've never had a guilty trip to McDonald's, sorry. But what kind of strategies would you employ to combat bullying on and offline?
Okay. This is a question that also came up with teachers today around the bullying and policies. And I think bullying it's complex. I think we have some very strong federal and state guidelines that we need to adhere to. There's very clear laws that are written, and I think a lot of us function in schools without understanding those laws. So I think unpacking those are important with staff and with principals. But I think the term bullying is one that really needs to consistently be redefined for parents and for students. So I think there's opportunities within adolescents and high school age kids and young kids to tease each other, to provoke each other, to be mean to each other. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's elevated to the level that these laws have been developed to protect kids from. So I think it's around really seeing where you are as a district. I don't know what kind of policies have been in place. Obviously, the guiding factor would be the law, the bullying law. But I don't know what kinds of structures have been developed, what kind of support in terms of protocols of reporting bullying incidents. I don't know if I know you use Aspen as the teachers use X2 or Aspen. Yeah. So I don't know if principals are recording that in incidents. I don't know if they file bullying reports with the state. Those are all things that I would have to gain a better understanding of.
Thank you.
How would a parent, principal, teacher, or student in Lowell describe you?
Say that again?
How would a parent, teacher, principal, or student in Lowell describe you?
Wow. I think kind would be one of the terms. I genuinely lead with my heart. And that's not always, some of the kids would say that, why are you doing this to me? And out of anger, and because I know it's right for you, and I know you need this, and I know this is the support that you need at this time, and I'm sorry that that doesn't feel right to you, but I know this is what you need at this time. So I'm not saying it's all roses and butterflies, kindness everywhere, but kindness looks different. You're always guided by what's best for teachers, what's best for kids, what's best for parents. So I would hope kind would be up there. I think my students and staff and district colleagues would all say that I have a sense of humor and that I'm kind of funny. I do have a levity to me. I enjoy having a good time with people. We have a lot of heavy lifting that we do each and every day. So if we can't sit back and have a little fun from time to time, it's a missed opportunity. And kids, I'm the one that will be out there dancing, coloring my hair, in the dunk tank, those kinds of things. So I think fun would be part of that. I'm also very competitive, so field day is a big day for me. I like to get out there with my fourth graders. I think my teachers would describe me as somebody with high expectations and somebody who holds people accountable, which I think it's nice when you have the other factors, because I think that can be viewed in a very harsh way, being someone that holds people to high expectations and is looking for accountability in working with kids. But I also am fair. So I understand that people function at different levels and need different support. So expectations may be high, but you may be working at a different level towards those expectations than somebody else, and that's fine with me. It's when the culture of maybe not doing something that's right or fair for kids or fair for colleagues, then I'm comfortable, calibrating that and calling you out on it. So I think definitely frankness and kind of being guided by what's right for kids ultimately, and what's right for staff. So.
Thanks.
I'm all set, thank you. Going through my questions, but thank you very much. Learning a lot through
Yeah.
everybody else's.
Okay, great.
Can I go?
You certainly may.
Well, I'm going to ask.
No, you're out.
Why?
You took too long.
Took too long.
Can you tell us why you are a good fit for Wilmington? And is that what you were going to say? And then can you describe what being personally invested in the Wilmington public school system means to you?
Okay. So I'm going to start with being personally invested on the front end with that, start with that. I am not, I know a lot of the people that I work with, my colleagues, have very long resumes with very diverse positions in very different communities that they've worked in. I'm committed to communities. I was in Wilmington for 10 years, and I've been in Lowell for close to 11. Those are the only two districts I've ever worked in. And I love my community of Lowell. I love the people that I work with, and I love the population of students that we serve. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't Wilmington. This opportunity presented itself, and it's because I have a personal investment in this community. I have a very tight alliance to Joanne Benton, and I feel like I learned a lot from her, and she mentored me throughout my 10 years as a principal, and there were times when I called her in the middle of the day to seek her guidance on an issue, and she was always there to support me. And so I felt like I felt like I wanted to take that challenge on, to see if I could bring some of her spirit back to Wilmington, because I love this school system. I love the work that some of the best years I had as a young mom and as a young teacher were here. And so that's why I'm here. I'm already personally invested. It's not going to take me working here a year or two to get personally invested. I come to you personally invested in this district. What was the first part?
Why are you a good fit for Wilmington?
Why am I a good fit? I feel like Wilmington has a variety of needs, but none of them are insurmountable. I think there's a real need for developing structures for collaboration and bringing adults together and developing a vision of what it means to be a Wilmington Public Schools teacher and community member and student. And I know curriculum, and a lot of the curriculum that I'm working with now is curriculum that you are rolling out. So you're in your second year of Reader's Workshop. I'm in my 11th year. I'm not familiar with your math program, but your science program, that's what we used at the elementary school, and now we're rolling it out in the middle school. So I'm working with middle school teachers, getting the FOSS kits embedded into instruction and aligning standards with the kits. So I have the experience with those things. At the high school level, I'm working with learning about the instructional round structure, where teachers are going into other teachers' classrooms to observe students and practices, and then debriefing about it. And it's very powerful structure, and I'm learning a great deal through being a part of that structure, and I feel like that's something that Wilmington, every school in Wilmington could benefit from that structure. So I feel like I have things that I can contribute to an already high-functioning district, and then things that I can bring that are new. So.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with collective bargaining?
So I have not been a member actively engaged in collective bargaining. I do philosophically feel that the interest-based bargaining is the way to go. So you're developing that relationship and understanding the both sides and the needs of both sides, and coming to a common agreement as opposed to deficit agreement. We'll give up this if you give up that, and kind of being able to grow that culture would be the direction I would facilitate those conversations, with the spirit of that guiding the work.
Thank you.
I think I'm all set, because I think my other questions would just be a reword
Okay.
of what has been covered.
Okay,
So
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Burlington versus Wilmington, who you rooting for?
That's unfair. That's just unfair, especially with the athletic director in the room. I'm afraid I couldn't answer that.
I got nothing else then.
Well, we thank you very much for fielding all our questions.
Okay.
And we'd like to give you an opportunity to offer some closing remarks.
Okay.
Anything that we didn't touch upon,
Okay.
certainly, that you'd like to?
Great. So I do have some closing remarks, but before I do, I was just wondering if we've done a lot of sharing of information. You may have heard from people that met with me today. If you have anything you need further clarification on, I'm open to kind of following up on some of those questions that maybe were posed to you that you might like me to speak to, if there's anything.
Looks like we're good.
Okay, great. So I brought with me something to share with you, because I feel like the one voice that's missing throughout this entire process is my staff. So to get back to the point of the people that I work with and what would they say about me. One of the things that I found when I was researching this position that really solidified it for me, that I wanted to seek it out, was your successful candidate profile that you created and published. And I thought that was really thorough and right on target with what good leadership and sound leadership is all about. And you highlighted change leadership, communication, and operations as a successful candidate having that skill set. So every couple of years, the state of Massachusetts offers schools and districts the opportunity to engage in the TELS survey. I know Wilmington has done it. I don't know if you had enough participation to collect effective data. But the TELS stands for Teaching, Empowering, Leading, and Learning. And it's an opportunity for staff to evaluate their leader. So they don't get that opportunity very often. So it's a voluntary survey, and yet I was able to get all 32 of my staff members to take it. I gave them time at a staff meeting. I opened myself up to the vulnerability to provide them the time because I think their feedback is important to guide my work, and I can only be as good as what they need me to be. So some leaders chose not to do that because you do open yourself up, but I really wanted to hear where my teachers saw me. So what I did was I pulled out some of the questions from the survey results that aligned to change leadership and to communication. So I just will share a couple of them with you so that you can hear a little bit of the people that I've worked with. They're all questions, and then the state percentile is around 75 to 78%. So I'll give you the percentile of my staff. The question, faculty and the faculty and leadership have a shared vision, 95%. Teachers are held to high professional standards for delivering instruction, 100%. The curriculum taught in this school is aligned with the Common Core standards, 100%. Professional development opportunities are aligned with the school's improvement plan, 100%. Teachers are encouraged to reflect on their own practice, 100%. School leader facilitates using data to improve student learning, 100%. Leader provides support that enhances teachers' ability to improve student learning, 100%. Students in this school understand expectations for their conduct, 100%. Teachers work in professional learning communities to develop and align instructional practices, 100%. Leader maintains clear two-way communication with the school community, 100%. Parents know what is going on in this school, 100%. And leader does a good job of encouraging parent and community involvement, 100%. So this survey is probably 40 questions. It's a pretty positive survey. That's not to say there were identified areas that I needed to work on, but in terms of bringing to the table the people that I work with and the spirit in which we bring about change and school improvement and best practices for students, I wanted to bring that to the table to share with you so you could hear from them as well. So thank you for the opportunity. I wish you the best of luck. It's been a pleasure getting to know everybody, and thank you. So.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, well, and then on behalf of the school committee and certainly from the entire community, thank you so much for investing this time and visiting us with us today and
Thank you.
having a 13, 14-hour day. We really appreciate it, and thank you again.
Thank you. All right.
Do we have to adjourn?
I would, before we all get up, I should probably entertain a motion to adjourn. Nobody?
Just gonna shake your hand.
I'll motion.
Second.
Jen, second by Julie. All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.